Soon, the 8 billionth baby in the world will be born. But it'll be at a time when global health systems are facing huge challenges. 1 in every 3 people are dying from preventable causes. Chronic diseases are on the rise, and many populations are aging. We need to build a new approach for shaping healthcare for the 21st century that leaves no one behind. Movement Health 2030 aims to address these challenges, not only by developing solutions to today's health issues, but also by supporting innovative shifts in healthcare systems and services to make them more equitable and sustainable. At Movement Health 2030, we've identified 6 steps to making this a reality. Step 1 is to set up regional boards, experts in the challenges faced in that region and experienced in propagating change. Step 2 is to define the challenges and the strategies to prioritize the most desirable outcomes. Step 3 is to build strong bonds and collaborations with local partners. Step 4 is to engage with local partners and create social support networks to achieve improved healthcare policies. Step 5 is to scout for existing innovations and then co-create solutions to the issues that have been identified. Step 6 is to identify synergies and scale learnings to the local level from other regions and globally. But the key to any progression will be public-private partnerships. Movement Health 2030 is setting up pilots all over the world to help accelerate system and service improvements. One great example of this in action is the partnership between the regional government of Cusco, Delivery Associates, and Roche. Together, they're building a budget planning and visualization tool. This will enable their healthcare systems to plan more effectively and scale where and when it's needed. We're still near the start of our journey, but already with initiatives like these, we're drawing up a roadmap for better patient experiences and outcomes as we move towards a future of health equity throughout Latin America and around the world.
Good morning, everybody. Very good morning to all of you, wherever you are. Very best wishes from Claudia Sofia. I'm enjoying the privilege to open the 4th edition of Biotech Atelier this year. Based on the circumstances, we are online, but I'm really delighted to share that this year Biotech Atelier covered the whole globe, and we have attendees from any continent from the planet, starting with Europe, with attendees from almost every country, from Turkey and Russia to UK and Ireland, and from Norway to Cyprus. But we have attendees from Australia, United States and Canada, Puerto Rico and Brazil, Republic of South Africa, through Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to China, Singapore and India. Over 50 countries worldwide. I think that's a remarkable achievement. And we have 3 long days ahead of us with far too many hot topics to be covered by remarkable and knowledgeable speakers, over 150 speakers. And I'm absolutely sure it's going to be a very insightful and eventful journey. So with these words from my part, I will be more than happy to pass the floor to my colleague and co-founder, Dr. Georgiev, who joins from Vienna. Dr. Georgiev.
Thank you, Borislav, and hello to everybody from Vienna. Vienna is a bit rainy, but the weather is still nice. It's indeed the start of a remarkable event. We expect to have more than 1,000 attendees from 53 countries during the 3 days. And this year we have much more topics to cover than last year, with a great step in direction of digital health. It's indeed our 4th year, and every year our event is becoming bigger and bigger, but also we go in more depth in specific topics which are, let's say, key priorities for our team. Advanced therapies, patient centricity, personalized medicine, biomarkers. I'm very happy that this year the special accent of our event is the patient centricity, which is extremely important in the medicine today because the patient really does matter. That's the most important part of the entire chain of events in a treatment, and thus we have put indeed the patients in the center of our Biotech Atelier this year. This is the first year when we have 3 days, and also I'm happy to say that our Biotech Atelier has a small subsidiary already in Vienna, where we are happy to go in more depth in a very important topic for the world today, biotechnology and water. In November, we will have another Biotech Atelier dedicated to water in Vienna, and we are expecting also very interesting speakers and a lot of attendees. It's not easy to make such an event. The competition is very hard, and also COVID enabled a lot of digital events to be successful, but we can say that our event is unique for the region, and I'm extremely thankful to all contributors this year and for the persons who have supported our event in the last 4 years, our friends and partners from all around the world. I have to say that we have excellent cooperation with our sponsors who were listed in the clip, and we are very thankful for their sustainable support and also for their proactive behavior this year when they approached us early enough to make the event even more interesting for them with their participation. What I would like to say is also that we can already announce our big event in 2022. I'm not sure how far this will be digital, hybrid, or live, but it will be between the 28th and the 30th of September 2022. So put this in your calendars, in your agendas. And of course, we will be happy to see you either in person or in a digital way to share more news about medicine, healthcare, biotech, and life sciences. Last but not least, of course, I am extremely proud on the team which we created together with Borislav, and this team has grown a lot in the 4 years of the Biotech Atelier. Some of the people left, of course, due to different reasons, but we have new incomers, intelligent, smart, young persons. And I am also very happy to say that the gender balance in our team is really pretty much dominated by the female part of the group. So we have fantastic girls who are supporting us every day, and it was a huge effort to organize this event, which I have to acknowledge properly. Having said that, and in order not to bore everyone, I am happy to open the Biotech Atelier 2021 and wish to all of you excellent time together. Please use every opportunity to network. Please use every opportunity to contact the team if you have any troubles or problems with the organization. And also you can contact us, the founders, Dr. Borissov and me, if you have any remarks, comments, or even critics. This helps always. Thank you for your attention and wishing you good luck today, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. Thank you once again.
Dimitar, thank you, Borislav, for this fantastic event, and thank you also for the good collaboration and being a part of working with you the last 4 years. It is with pride from the Institute sides that we are connecting with you on this, and I think this session is an example on that with these strong participants. We have framed the session Movement Health 2030, a global initiative that we work with. And we have some distinguished guests here who will give a presentation around 8 minutes on what they are working with. And then we're also taking each, of course, and then we're taking a round of discussion how this fits both together and in this movement towards sustainable health systems. Last century. But the system logic we are applying now is not sustainable, and we can do much more and much better for many more. We need a systemic change. So at the Movement Health 2030, we are trying to do policy shift changes, both top-down and bottom-up, and also yearly practical directional innovation or pilots in the countries that we work in, so we can push this change forward. It's also based on a understanding that 80% of health challenges are the same around the world. Of course, countries are different, health systems are different, and the maturity in the systems is different, but the challenges are the same. So let's work together on these. So our approach is to work together in ecosystems with persons and institutions and companies that we have in this panel today. In Europe, we have started with 9 countries based on these 4 main pillars, so improving access to quality of care across the lifespan, advancement in science and biotechnology, so the genomics and multi-omics as well, data science and digital solutions, and sustainable health systems, partnership models, and also new ways of funding health. In Europe, we started with 9 countries, so the 4 Nordic, the 3 Baltics, and Hungary, Bulgaria, and also trying to bridge cross-country, how can we work together on providing better health solutions. We can also say that we have technology, we have concepts, we have knowledge, but we do not apply. What is holding us back? A lot of the feedback we get, a lot of the responses we get is that we know what is wrong and we know what to do, but still we are not progressing enough. So how can we get forward? Where do we begin? How do we change this paradigm? How do we not just look forward, but also ask what can we do tomorrow? So we need to ask questions and work together and to find cooperative solutions, because nobody can solve this alone. Again, where do we start and where do we go? Based on these 9 countries, we have worked it down to some challenges and opportunities and aspirations. They're not new, but there are still big challenges that we need to work with. So equity and access, how do we help the weakest? Preventive care is also about how do we have prevention when we treat, so secondary prevention. Data and digital infrastructure is very needed, which could also come into personalized healthcare. If we want that, we need to work cross-border. How do we solve these things? From strategy to implementation, how do we get real prioritization into the system? One of the things that we have seen working in plus 30 countries now is the lack of the systems to prioritize is probably the biggest bottleneck we have. It's not technology, it's the prioritization and the decision. We need to collaborate, and we have examples in Europe where we are trying to have European Health Union as a concept, Digital Health Space Europe, IHI, Interreg, these things are coming in. And how do we make sure that the windows of opportunity opened with COVID-19, that we actually use it and not fall back to the old system? Supporting healthy behavior. So one of my team members living in Switzerland, his insurance gives him a premium if he can show that he actually has a healthy behavior. Are these the ways that we are going to go forward? And the public and private partnerships are probably needed and need to come on the table so we can go forward. It's quite clear with the aspirations that people, the stakeholders in the countries really want robust digital infrastructures and interoperability, but it doesn't come by itself. So how does each and every of us make those steps that are needed? And improved health and digital literacy is talked a lot about, but it's very simple. It's to get into education in schools and actually start doing this health literacy and teaching about health. And person-centered and preventive healthcare models is also what happens outside of the clinic. So how do we expand our knowledge and our understanding of what is health? So thank you. And with this word, we're going to go to the first distinguished speaker. So Joanne Hackett, who has an impressive career already and still much to come. She had a key role in Genomic England and is now leading genomics and precision medicine at IQVIA. So Joanne, the floor is yours.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to share a few slides for today's talk, if that's all right. So I will just find these slides and upload them. As I'm finding the slides, I just want to again say thank you to the organizers for allowing us to be here today, to be able to share some of our experiences, which is fantastic. But also, I think probably more importantly than anything is for us to really be able to harness the value of the work that we're doing, not just in things that are happening behind the scenes, but more importantly, it's things that we're actually doing together. And these things that we do together, very often, I think we probably forget a little bit of the fact that if we're doing it together, our voices are stronger, which is very important. And in addition to that, if we're doing it together and we're actually making progress, I believe that we're at the forefront of being able to share with the rest of the world some of the things that work really well in one place, but at the same time don't necessarily work so well in other places. And therefore, if we can share best practice and start to be able to work in a holistic way across, I think these are the extremely important things that we need to be doing together as a collective. So that's enough of a monologue, hopefully, as these slides are slowly, I believe, coming onto the screen. And with that, I will just share a little bit of my insights. And as just described in the very kind introduction, I've spanned this area now for the past probably 20, 25 years or so, and always really thinking of that holistic view of patient-centered healthcare. And for those of you who know me and for those of you who've heard me speak before, the reason I've dedicated my career really to this whole entire field is because I was one of those children with a diagnostic odyssey. So I've really understood both being at the patient side of it myself personally, but also having a career in this field as well. So with that, I will launch into a few of the things that I've been up to, as I said, working across the patch with many of my colleagues on the line here today. It's not something that I want to spend a lot of time on when we think about what's happened in the last 18 months or so, but I think it's important for us to realize that this has fundamentally changed healthcare as a whole. And so when you think about what's going to be in the aftermath of what this is going to look like really for the next 10, 15, 20 years, while there's no way that we're going to be able to really and truly predict that, because I'm sure many of us couldn't have predicted what happened in the past 18 months, we can see some of the things that we're going to have to grapple with and we're going to have to address and look straight on and use best practice from around the world and sometimes in other sectors as well to try to understand this. So really there's four main themes here. It's what are going to be the new market trends? What are these growing opportunities? How do we think about an environment that's more than just the vaccine environment, but one that perhaps is thinking a little bit more about prevention as opposed to treatment, and also the major healthcare shifts that we're going to be seeing. And if we think of that as a whole, I think one of the most important things for us to really focus in on are these exciting opportunities really for the industry. Now, we know that it's going to be complicated. We know that there's no one particular answer, but I think if you look across the strength and what we're going to actually be able to have to leverage with each other, there's quite a lot to go on. So clinical development, I have never seen such innovation and move so quickly as I have in the last 24 months. This is going to be fantastic for us to be able to think of different ways of doing clinical trials. And one of the criticisms that we often hear about with respect to clinical trials is perhaps they're not either patient-centric enough, or maybe they're not as accessible. If we really want to think about the individual as a research opportunity for them and also for society, how can we get better at thinking about delivering clinical trials in a slightly different way? Data science, it's not an easy thing to dismiss that there's been a lot of data generated. Are we capturing the right data? Are we using it effectively? How can we actually apply those advanced analytics to derive really interesting insights and to share them? Again, how do we think about taking knowledge that we have in particular countries and sharing it in other places? And we do need to remember that not all collaborations can exist in one particular country or across the globe. How do we start to harness things that are happening that are really good? And I'm a big fan of thinking about other industries as well. I often use the banking industry as an example when we talk about genomics. We think genomics is really big data, and it is, but the banking industry obviously churns out that type of data on a regular basis. So let's not think about starting from scratch. How can we repurpose things? And then there will be differences in business models. There used to be a lot of individuals quite afraid of the fact that data would be commercialized because it sounded kind of frightening and they didn't really know what to do with that language and that terminology. The commercialization very often means accessibility. There is obviously basic infrastructure that needs to be paid for. Are these going to be different business models that we can actually start to talk about and actually advance in that field? And then obviously, as mentioned, the thing that kind of holds all this together is really the evidence that helps us drive innovation. And innovation doesn't necessarily always mean starting things from scratch. So I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail. These slides will be shared, but I really just wanted to show you some of the things that we're doing at IQVIA. So to really allow this connected healthcare ecosystem to occur, you see a lot of different logos on this slide for a reason. There's absolutely none of us here today, both on the panel and also in the audience, that can do any of this alone. So thinking about the way that we can start to work together is the most important way for us to really drive healthcare innovation forward. The thing that's sitting at the center, as you can see very clearly, is the empowered patient. If we do not have patients empowered, and very often we think of patients as someone who's frail or really, really sick, you know, I'm a patient, you're a patient, we're all patients. Think about how we can actually get the most value and support that individual so they feel very empowered and want to be part of this. We do have to address, as I mentioned, the things that have happened because of COVID. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for us to do things differently because of that. That, again, needs to be done with healthcare systems. It needs to be done with the pharma industry. It needs to be done with charities. How can we maximize that? Accelerating outcomes with technology. As I mentioned, it's so important for us to think about all the things that we can do better, faster, different, but also the new challenges that come with the fact that there's a lot more technology available. How do we harness and really maximize that? And I think one of the most important things that the pandemic has highlighted is that we do need to think about future-proofing our healthcare systems. We do need to realize that things are going to have to be a bit more elastic and that we're going to have to look at doing things differently. Supply chain, there's a lot of different things to think about. It's not just delivering care. And I think that those are things that really need to be grappled at a macro level as well as on the ground. And then I think importantly, using data science, how do we start to derive these insights without us having to go back to scratch, doing the same sort of experiments again? And the only way we can really do that is to generate data and use it across many different parts of the world. The thing that I've seen really quite exciting is the demand for real world data and real world evidence. And I think the more we can shift away from, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with your traditional way of doing RCTs, but the more we can start to capture things that are happening today that give us real salient pieces of information, this is how you really empower the patient. If you think about us, many of us walk around with a cell phone attached to us 24/7 almost. What data is that generating? Is there anything of use there? Like, how do we start to empower people to use tools that are around them to really generate information that could be useful for their health? And I think this is where we're starting to see more and more questions being asked around either the expectation for real world evidence, what does this look like for regulatory packages, how is this going to actually accelerate research? And there's a lot of demand in this space, and the only way to capture this data is through empowering the patient. And I think healthcare solutions as a whole, as I mentioned, that's not just the solution when we think about how to do healthcare differently in the future or how to maximize the good things that are happening today. There are a lot of things that are in the periphery that very often, if that's not your particular day job, you don't necessarily think about it. But GPs, for example, they're measured based on their performance. They don't get paid unless there's a certain amount of business that comes through the front door. It's not about how do we try to get more individuals through the front door, but how do we think maybe about those incentives and thinking about the way that clinical and financial performances decisions are actually done differently. So there really is more to thinking about healthcare than actually like care of an individual's health. So again, thinking about that care optimization pathway and how to involve the patient is an extremely important part of that. And then around the patient, I think the most important thing is this broader ecosystem. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of things to think about. And if you haven't been a long-term ill patient, it's sometimes difficult to remember that there are things that sit around the periphery rather than someone just feeling unwell and having to go to see their GP. But at the end of the day, we are all patients, so all of this needs to be taken into consideration. There's a lot of misinformation when it comes to health engagement and awareness. How do we actually start to think about doing that differently? All of the different health policy, how do we get people a bit more involved in advocating for good health and different type of health and personalized health? The design, as I mentioned, of trials, for example, collecting the data. We're really, really careful about who accesses the data. What's the purpose of it? Do we need to be that careful? Do we need to be more careful? There's a lot of different things to grapple with, but that ecosystem around the patient is actually something that we really need to spend more time addressing and looking into. And then this probably ties in quite nicely with what was presented at the very beginning, this whole harnessed innovation, connected ecosystem. You see the providers here, the whole medtech space is going absolutely wild right now. I've never seen such deals before, and the valuations for some of these companies in the medtech space is actually quite shocking, but very exciting at the same time. Regulators are making decisions in a different way now. Consumers are demanding more. All of these things are connected. And I think when we think about all of this and the way to work together, there's some really exciting ways to reflect treatment costs, to look at that in a slightly different way, but to really have an aligned understanding throughout the stakeholders. A lot of text on this slide. As I said, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail with the slides. They're more for talking points than anything else. They will be shared. But this is a really great way of thinking about, digital and therapy innovation. It really is driving healthcare adoption in a slightly different way. And when we think about empowering individuals to self-treat, and it's all about patient centricity, this is where we start to embrace telemedicine in a very different way, digital technologies to be able to help the home healthcare be very different. And also, do we think about doing more self-administration and novel dosing when it comes to the patient, so they don't have to go into the clinic in order to get care? But there's a lot of different benefits that come out of this by us being able to think about enabling that home healthcare to be a very different thing than what it was in the past. And I think, again, when we think about who benefits, it's not just one particular stakeholder. It is the patient, absolutely. It is the healthcare system. And more importantly, when we think about who has to pay for some of these things, it is the payers as well.
And thank you, Joanne. We're a bit over time.
Okay, great, fantastic, wonderful. I just was going to finish by saying,
Yes.
we do have to think about the central nervous system, because this is obviously a really exciting area that's going to be helped hugely by digital trials and digital technologies. And that was actually how I was ending anyway. So thank you for keeping me to time.
Thank you very, very much, Joanne. Very, very interesting, and for this very good overview and insights. We will have a round of discussion afterwards. Now I'll ask Bernard Grimm to take the floor.
Thank you for inviting me. And what I would like to do during those few minutes is maybe just to focus, as I'm representing EuropaBio, the Biotechnology Association. I just wanted, to highlight a few points from the innovation angle when it comes to healthcare and the future of healthcare. So just a few words on EuropaBio. We are the Association for Innovative Biotechnology for People and the Planet. And what we really try to strive for is looking at, European citizen health, trying to put in place, a world-class ecosystem when it comes to healthcare for patients, obviously. But our main focus is around, innovation and innovation continuum. And this not only in the healthcare space, but also in the industrial process, and also contributing through biotechnology to a sustainable world. And so you see that we are working with national associations, with the Healthcare Council, with an Industrial Biotechnology Council, but also through the SME platform. So maybe just a few statements to start with.
Sorry to interrupt you. We do not see your slides. Would you try to share them again, or I will do it for you?
I will try to do it. Just a second. I hope you can see them now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry for that. No, so I wanted just to come with a few, when it comes to innovation, a few opening statements on what biotechnology has changed in the context of COVID-19. First, we all agree, and I think Joanne already said it, that the COVID crisis has accelerated the adoption of new technology, and this is all across the board. When it comes to supply chain, you know, we're going to see also a more diversification of production center, and we really believe that this is going to change how, you know, supply chain will be organized, specifically in the healthcare arena. In biotechnology, we believe that you will see more and more regional, you know, biofactories closer to their markets than what we've seen in the past. But also, you know, you've seen that biotechnology and life science have shown their capacity to deliver breakthrough technologies through vaccines, treatment, or diagnostic solution in a time frame that we have never seen before. But, you know, one important aspect also is that the pandemic has put the health on the policy priority list. And what we have seen more than ever is this tight link between people's health, their well-being, and the economy. So we believe in this context that the biotechnology sector will have a huge responsibility to deliver the innovation that is needed to contribute to a sustainable healthcare system and also to the environment. So we believe, you know, this is a time where we see a few challenges. I'm just going to cover a few of them, but you know them. I would like to get a little bit further than just the healthcare context. I think the pandemic preparedness, the general health and well-being, the destruction of the biodiversity, and the fair and sustainable product recovery is clearly in the highlight. But we believe that biotechnology will have to build a new model for prosperity and growth, where biotechnology goes hand in hand with the quality of life of all citizens. So we believe biotechnology can contribute to a more inclusive economy, creating jobs for the future, participate to the economic recovery, and to decarbonize green economy through the circular economy and the bio-based processes. But it can also create, and I think Joanne already alluded to that, resilient ecosystem for the health and the well-being of all. And this in a time where science is accelerating at a rate we've never seen before. Obviously, the world of biology has reached a new phase of growth. Innovations such as CRISPR-Cas9 and gene editing and stem cell have accelerated the possibility to reprogram cells. And we are now in a new time. And this can be applied, obviously, to most of the human health domains. And we believe in the future, almost half of the global disease burden could be approached through those applications that are already scientifically conceivable today. So many of these innovations born already contributed to the global response of the SARS-CoV pandemic. And we are at a time that not only biology is moving very quickly, those rapid advances are moving ahead with computing, bioinformatics, and artificial intelligence. And this is a time of acceleration of innovation we've never seen before. So those bio-innovations have a potential of totally transforming some of the capabilities we have in this world. We believe that 60% of the world's physical inputs can be used by biological means. 45% of the world's burdens when it comes to healthcare can be addressed. And you've seen that the private sector, and you've seen it in the COVID-19 crisis again, 30% of the COVID R&D spend has been done around biology in this industry. So the potential impact for the economies and the societies are substantial, but this doesn't go without risk, obviously, and that those issues need to be managed. For people that are interested, I'm quoting a McKinsey report on the bio-revolution if you want to go more in those details. When it comes to areas of innovation, I would mention, you know, the health optimization for the future.
2 minutes. 2 minutes left.
The cell and gene and RNA approaches, and also the improvement in drug delivery. The areas of innovation are the biomolecules, the biosystem, and the bio-machine interfaces. Here again, I do not have time to go too much in the details, but here is where the revolution will take place. One important point I would like to highlight here is, the European leadership in life science and biotechnology, which is at stake. And I'm showing here a slide of the European Innovation Council. Europe has been historically in the forefront of some of the innovation technologies in the past. We've seen, with the digital revolution that Europe was not needed necessarily in the leading seat. We need to make sure that when it comes to gene therapies, CRISPR-Cas, or some of the technologies around artificial intelligence, Europe needs to be in the lead. Today, what you see is that we are still having some challenges in Europe there, and a few things are holding us back. First is that the strong research we have in Europe is not always translated in innovation, and we have sometimes a lack of breakthrough and disruptive innovation. When it comes to funding, of course, you've seen with COVID-19 that the funding to biotechnology has increased significantly, but there is still a huge gap when you compare to other regions in the world. The transition from lab to enterprises and the scaling up of innovative startups could certainly be speeded up in the future. And the last one, which is typical to Europe, is our ecosystem, where we still have a fragmented environment. And so we need really to make sure that we include all regions and all talent when it comes to innovation in the future. And I would like to finish, this first pitch on one slide that gives you a little bit of an overview of Europe's challenge to translate science. It shows you, when you compare the different regions of the world, how things have been moving. Of course, Europe is moving, but maybe not as fast as others. The US has been in the forefront. And when you look at the patent registration, you see that China has increased in the last years its level of registration. And when you know that you're looking backwards, when you look at patent registration, you would be surprised if you look at the digital space, how China is outperforming all the other regions of the world. So just to finish this opening statement, we believe in biotechnology, the future is bright, and we have healthcare solutions there to address the main challenges. But as Joanna said just before, we need to work together. We need also to have a healthy debate of where the priority lies. And if those political decisions are taken properly, we know in which area we should invest in the future. So that's basically, as the opening statement, what I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very interesting. We will come back with questions after the other panelists have been on. And not least on the point of that a lot of things are already there that can be used and helped. So from Bernard, we go to Toni Andreu, the scientific director of EATRIS, Translational Medicine Infrastructure, Research Infrastructure. Toni, can you take the floor, please?
Thank you, Bogi. Well, good to Biotech Atelier, the organizers, for inviting me to participate in this very fascinating debate about the innovation in the future of healthcare. And I was thinking, listening to Joanna and Bernard and also Bogi, that I'm happy to see that we are fully aligned, because we see the horizon from our different experiences, that basically we are watching at the same future. So my purpose today is to bring EATRIS flavor and our experience for the development of the innovation value chain and how to accelerate the implementation of solutions in the healthcare domain. Just a couple of words about what EATRIS is. EATRIS, the European Infrastructure for Translational Medicine, is a European research infrastructure, represents a permanent collaboration of more than 130 research institutes that work in the translational medicine pipeline, from basic science to clinical implementation, with a high number of university hospitals in 14 European countries that decided to put forces together for progressing and accelerating the translational medicine value chain in Europe. And I'm happy to see, in the context of Biotech Atelier, that Bulgaria is an active member of the organization. This alliance of research institutions and groups represents this group around 5 scientific platforms: advanced therapy, medical products, biomarkers, imaging and tracing, small molecules, and vaccines, that represent a strong network of scientific brains and technological capacities that want to move forward in the translational medicine value chain. Well, when we talk about innovation in healthcare, it's important to emphasize that we are talking about the paradigm of translational medicine, the process by which the knowledge that is generated by science at the end of a long journey is transformed into a real product that is able to tackle unmet medical need. And this is a long process full of traps and full of real maze where it's very difficult to progress forward. There are challenges that have been very well identified at the basic level, such as, for instance, the poor reproducibility of preclinical research, the difficulty in identifying good predictive preclinical experimental models for bringing the knowledge that has been identified, that has been generated in the scientific side, moving it forward into the translational value chain and bring it to the patient. When we are moving from the lab to the patient community, scientists have a very limited regulatory experience, a very limited knowledge of the regulatory hurdles, and this slows down the process and makes it more difficult for bringing it to the patient. And when the product is ready to reach the patient, there are also several, as you know, issues in the implementation related to fragmentation of the strategies on how to implement this particular solution to the patient. So, but once challenges are identified, of course, opportunities are also identified. There are specific programs and activities, and this is one of the main, let's say, strategy of our portfolio of activities can be implemented for accelerating this process, such, for instance, implementing quality assurance programs that reassure that the outcomes generated at the preclinical level have the highest standards of quality and reproducibility and can be, of course, replicated in other labs, developing specifically predictive and good experimental models in vivo, in silico, to reassure that those findings can be brought forward in the translational value chain, providing regulatory guidance to scientists and clinicians for reassuring that we accelerate this process. And of course, and very important, having a very early involvement of the two critical actors that are essential for the implementation, which are the patients, the patient community, and of course the payers, the healthcare providers. So the key of our thesis in this process is that this concept that we call innovation in healthcare requires a tuned and a strong, stable collaboration between all the stakeholders that participate in this process. And we are not talking only about scientists, we are talking about the industry, about the regulators and policymakers, clinicians, and of course, and they have a central role in the patient community. So it's important that we agree that when we talk about innovation, we are talking not only about developing a solution. The aim is a little bit more complex. Of course, we want better health outcomes, but we also want an improved patient experience. We want to lower cost of care because at the end of the day, innovation has to improve and has to increase the capacities of our system for providing solutions to the medical needs. And something which is very important in a context where the healthcare professionals are suffering of a tremendous pressure, using innovation as a tool also for improve the staff experience in the healthcare process. So this multi-stakeholder approach is the key for progressing in the innovation value chain, and the real transformation of the healthcare in the future requires this kind of stable cooperation of all the actors involved. And in this process, we all have to envision that the patient must be at the center of this strategy, and developing this action, this strategy, and this narrative in a process of co-creation with the patient in a way that the patient community will accompany us moving forward in the development of the innovation value chain. Just a few examples of innovative solutions that are in the process of being implemented in the health system. Of course, as we mentioned, genomic medicine, I would like to say that there is a strong capacity of the development of genomic medicine. Genomic medicine has been the key element for the development of personalized medicine, particularly in two disease domains, rare diseases and cancer. based on the biological fact that we are talking about genomic disorders, basically. But if we want to expand the borders and the framework of personalized medicine, we need to increase our capacity for better understanding the biological identity of one particular phenomenon in our particular patient. That means we need to understand much more than the genome. We need to understand the proteome, the metabolic interactions, and that will allow us to accelerate the adoption of personalized medicine. Of course, immunotherapy is already a powerful tool. We have the challenge of bringing immunotherapy for solid tumors. Is there first examples of success have been already identified, and this is definitely going to be one of the key elements for the treatment of cancer and other chronic diseases.
Yeah. 1 minute.
1 minute. Bioservices of your devices, artificial intelligence as a key element in the decision-making process, and other innovative approaches that will allow us to reshape the future of the healthcare domain in Europe. For finalizing, I want to reiterate this element. This is a complex interaction between different stakeholders, each of one having their own responsibility, but the patient must be at the center of this process in a philosophy of co-creation of this new paradigm that we call the personalized medicine domain that will make innovation a reality in the way we deliver healthcare. So thank you very much, and looking forward to the discussion with my other colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Toni. As always, a very good overview and insights on this. So I think what we see here, and I'm looking forward to our discussion, is that you actually activate the science and the cooperation in order to get it translated, what was asked for. So it's a very important part of it. So next we have Thomas Allvin from EFPIA, who is Executive Director of Strategy and Healthcare Systems. Are you?
Yes.
Can you take the floor, Thomas?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bogi, and thanks to all for very interesting presentations. So I will just quickly share my slides. And I hope you can see them. So what I will try to do is now quickly, and I will time myself, to go through a bit more concretely into some of the innovations we see coming from the point of view of the pharma industry, and discuss a bit about what will be needed to actually introduce these successfully into health systems. Because I think we all agree that innovation is great, but if it actually doesn't reach patients, then there is sort of no use of it. And first, to say that the R&D pipelines of the private industry is extremely full and active. Here you can see, year to year, the number of clinical trials have grown, and even, of course, it was a bit of a problem disruption because of COVID, but still around 5,000 trials were started in 2020 only, and you can see to the right the different therapy areas. Now, of course, infectious diseases came up as a big new one because of COVID, of course, but still oncology, many other disease areas of big societal burden, such as neurological diseases, etc. And looking at some of the specific therapies that we can see coming just in the next few years. We have, of course, new combination therapies in oncology that are showing great progress on areas like non-small cell lung cancer. We have a full pipeline of Alzheimer's therapies. Despite huge setbacks, huge clinical trial failures over the last year, the industry is still trying to innovate, to find new treatments for Alzheimer's. Gene therapies, as was mentioned, where you can repair a faulty gene, for instance, in hemophilia patients, so they can start themselves naturally producing the protein that is sort of missing and now has to be given to them intravenously several times a week. CAR T therapies is huge in cancer, hematological cancers mainly, but there's now also research being done on solid tumors. So this is a cell therapy. We have things like therapies for NASH, so non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is a disease with a huge burden, which often leads to liver transplants and other very costly treatments down the line if you don't stop it. Today, there are no therapies against this. mRNA vaccines, of course, sort of famous through COVID, but the reason that the technology platform was there and could be used for COVID was that there was already research and development going on mRNA vaccines, but against cancer. So there are therapies in development, for instance, against brain cancer. We have also in the central nervous system area, as was mentioned, interesting therapies coming. For instance, these remyelinating therapies to prevent or even reverse damages to the myelin sheaths that protect nerve fibers and that cause MS. And then new curative therapies against hepatitis B and HIV. So trying to do the same thing against hepatitis B that has previously been done for hepatitis C. So you can see, and so this is just some examples of the sort of breakthrough innovation that are coming that will mean really a paradigm shift for patients, for health systems and societies. And as others have said, now we need to figure out what do we do with this innovation and what is needed to prepare in terms of having the right evidence generation and assessment of these new innovation. How do we adapt reimbursement and funding models? How do we change healthcare delivery models? Because sometimes some of these innovations will change how you deliver healthcare, and how can we get the health data needed to power these models? And we have broken it down into a number of areas where health systems need to sort of plan ahead and adapt. First, of course, is on the regulatory area. It's necessary that regulatory system is adapted for these new type of innovations like cell and gene therapies that was not really thought of when our regulatory systems were set up. And right now, as you probably know, the European Commission has started a review of the EU pharmaceutical legislation. They just yesterday published a consultation around this. A legal proposal will come in about 12 months. So this will be extremely important to make sure that the regulatory system is future-proof. This is, of course, also linked to the second point, which is about real-world evidence. Some of these new therapies come with incomplete evidence from the start because of smaller clinical trials that target small patient groups. How can we collect the additional real-world data to make sure that these therapies actually deliver value to patients and health systems? And this is also connected to the third part. How do we value innovation? How do we reward it? Do we have a holistic view of the value that these innovations bring? And do we take into account the patient perspective? Do we include patient-reported outcome, patient satisfaction to get these patient-centered health systems that also previous speakers have talked about? And that also brings us to financing models. How do we fund healthcare? Some of these new cell and gene therapies, they will replace a lifetime of chronic treatment with one very advanced upfront treatment where you repair the genes, and which means that you will no longer need, or you will need less of these kind of just chronic constant treatments. But that takes a lifetime of healthcare costs that is spread out over the lifetime of a patient, and it concentrates it in the beginning for this very specialized treatment. Now the sort of reimbursement models and payment models in our health systems are not made for that. So we need to think, how do we finance healthcare over the annual budget cycle? How do we create better financing models? And I think here, as was also said by, I think, Joanne, how can we learn from other sectors, other industries on how to do this? So I think this is
1 minute, Thomas.
Yes. So just finally, of course, we need to also adapt healthcare delivery infrastructure. This can be about having the diagnostic capacities. If we get Alzheimer's treatments, can we diagnose all the Alzheimer's patients that would need them? We can't do that today. So we need, again, to prepare and also having these kind of adapting patient pathways and have these partnerships around data science and technology. And finally, so I will skip a few slides. You will get them later. It's more for deeper reading, but this is a final slide, and I think others have had similar slides, because we need to come together and do horizon scanning, understand what innovation is coming, and prepare the health systems, because so we don't get caught flat-footed once we get a new product or service and there's not a health system context to bring it into. So I will stop there and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much. So your ending point on the readiness of the system, and if we take the words from Bernard, the technological readiness is to do much more, but the readiness of the system to actually work with it is maybe where we should focus. Thank you. We will come back to that in our discussion. And now I would ask Alexandar Aleksiev to take the floor. I think we can call him one of the local stars, impressive career and entrepreneur. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bogi. Let me just share my slides. First of all, I'm really happy to be part of this initiative. Actually, this is my second time in this format, and I'll start with a short presentation of our company and the mission we aim. Our company is data technology and healthcare provider, and our mission is to provide quality in every project we do. That's why from the beginning we wanted to comply with all regulations, and we were certified by Lloyd's for quality and data protection ISO. Lately, we are doing some digital projects which are actually in the today's topic, patient centricity model. We are trying to digitalize the patient pathway by providing different software solutions which are compliant with the data standards, which are worldwide approved, like HL7 and FHIR. Through these softwares, actually, we provide our services, which are patient support programs, and lately we started home care programs. Via these platforms, we connect the patients to the doctors and provide better experience for the patient and very useful insights for the doctors. Via doctor and patient portals, we collect the data, as mentioned, in structured way in order to give to the doctors instruments for better decisions and better insights of the patient's treatment and whether the prescribed medicine is working properly. As I mentioned, we are providing patient support programs, which started in the beginning by supporting the patients first with their documents and the way to receive their treatment, because probably you know in Bulgaria it is difficult because of the system. First, to understand what are the steps, and our assistants guide the patient through the whole way in order first to receive the treatment and after that to remind to the patient to comply with the prescribed treatment, and to track also the efficacy of the treatment and to provide information to the doctor regarding this treatment. During these programs, we identified a lot of needs which were not covered to the patient, which is additional services which they need staying in their homes. That's why we started building new way of providing home care, and of course the COVID situation triggered this process and made it faster. How we do our home care programs, it is based on different devices which are monitoring and tracking the vital status of the patient. Some of them are providing 24/7 monitoring of different risk and potential risk is identified by a call center which is monitoring the patient. We divided in online and offline devices. Some of the devices are connected to the smartphone of the patient, and there are triggers which are providing to the patient alerts when there is a change of their normal situation. Again, our home services are mainly from distance, but in some cases we provide different support to the patients, like social workers who are working with different mentality patient and other disorders. A brief overview of our portfolio. It is a very large portfolio of services we provide. Like in the beginning, I said that we are a healthcare provider, but also combining data which is collected through our support programs and working with hospitals and different stakeholders on the market. We can provide also consultancy for the pharmaceutical companies and market access and HTA. Basically, this is what I wanted to share. Again, it is on the topic of patient centricity and putting patients in the center of the healthcare system.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was a very good overview on some of the practical things which are already possible and in action. I think this was a very good way also to get into our discussion. So if I could have all the panelists ready. So I will ask you individually on some questions, and I would like you to be very brief. So 1-minute answers, so we can get some rounds of discussion and spoil our audience a little bit with all your knowledge. So Joanne, a part of these very interesting things that you mentioned was the importance, which all of you mentioned, was also the patient or the person centricity. And we all know it, and we probably have the technology to do it. But what is this first step we need to do to really activate this one?
Yes, I'll keep this very brief. I think we need to start remembering that we all are patients at the end of the day, and we have to stop we have to put aside the fact that we think of patients as someone who's either really sick or has a chronic condition. We all get colds, we all feel unwell, we all have headaches, which means we're all patients. And the sooner we can take a step back from the mentality and shift it and actually empower the individual, the human being that's sitting in front of us, the better it is. So I think we just need to shift our mindset, to be honest.
Okay, and is there any specific thing we can do just to trigger that mindset shift?
Yeah, I think part of it is I'm really delighted that so many places are doing patient panels and participant panels and starting to get the voice of the individual in a lot of trial design and things like that. So I think it's just being a bit more inclusive.
Okay, thank you. Bernard, I think it's quite clear that you flashed out to us that there is a lot of the new, we call it the new biology. There's a lot of things which are not applied, which could be applied. So there is a technological readiness, but not the societal readiness to it, so to say. So how do we activate this? So what is the missing link, not to the full big potential, but to open the floodgates, so to say?
Yeah, I believe just on the patient side, obviously, I think one of the key elements is to empower the patient to be in the center of the healthcare system. I think this reflection about a patient sharing his own data for the best of the world and the healthcare system is, to me, certainly one central idea. But when it comes to the speed of change, that's the point I wanted to make. There has never been so much change going on all over the system, through digital, through the biology, or through engineering. It means, you need to adapt the system to this speed of change. And this needs radical change of the mindset. And to me, what we need to have is a real debate in society on what needs to be prioritized. This big vision on if we want to address healthcare differently, we're going to have to prioritize and make clear that we're going to make some investment in some areas and maybe less investment in some other ones, because if not, we're not going to be able to manage that. And look also, at efficiency in the healthcare system. I've gone in the last months through a personal, pathway review of healthcare system in France. I can tell you that the rift between reality and what is the vision is just too big, and we need to address it.
Yes, thank you. We'll come back to some of those. Toni, I think you are sitting in a key position there with some basic science and connecting that and then trying to get that into the society or translate it into the society. So we hear coming to the patients, and we hear that we have a lot of things which you also alluded to that should be wider used already. So from your point of view and sitting in one of the European research infrastructures, what should we do in order to get further, faster?
Yeah, I think the key, well, this is probably the question, right? But I would say, to be synthetic, that engaging the different stakeholders that participate in this process. We live in an extremely rich system from a scientific and technological perspective, but still the system is fragmented and siloed, and there is an enormous amount of energy, brain energy, that is wasted. So if we put people around the table, and we make them realize that they are not isolated bodies, but part of the same journey, suddenly the speed accelerates.
Thanks. So, Thomas, EFPIA has been quite active in, for instance, IMI and now the IHI that is coming, and you are the business sides of where Toni, not just but most is public research, and one of the things is also this sometimes this disconnection between the business and the public research and the public sector. So and you mentioned yourself all this potentials that we have, and I think all of you are in on that Europe needs to take a stand and become stronger. So what is the role of the industry, and how can industry be, what can be made different so the industry is an integral part of the ecosystem and it's not seen as a separate part sometimes?
Yeah, thank you. And I think that is a very important question, and I was mentioned, I think, by Bernard, there is sort of a translational gap in Europe where other regions, for instance, US, are better at actually making innovation and final products and services of basic research, and they will need to catch up. And it is the entire ecosystem, and of course we're trying through vehicles like IMI and now IHI, partner with the public sector to make this happen and also share data, share science, share learnings, and now with the new the health initiative, we're moving beyond the pharma industry to biotech, to medtech, digital technologies to create these more integrated solutions. So I think that would be a big part of it. I think that we need also to look at sort of the smaller companies, the SMEs, which have problems to access financing in Europe on the same terms as, for instance, in the US. So many SMEs take their innovation, they go to US and get financing. And I think this is something where we need to work together to also try to find new models.
Yeah, no, I think that's a quite clear pattern, and it's even worse in the digital space than in the life science space. So, Alexandar, you one of the things that we have had a lot of focus on also in our collaboration with the Biotech Atelier is how do we get Central Eastern European stronger on health, and you are one of these entrepreneurs pushing. So what is the most important thing to get both health in itself, but also the possibilities to work like you as an entrepreneur and push also the business and the research side in, for instance, Bulgaria forward?
First of all, I think in Bulgaria are concentrated a lot of experts in terms of IT and technology. And we have a great opportunity to use those experts in the digitalization of the healthcare. But first, we need a global agreement on the standards of data collection, of data providing to all stakeholders like pharmaceutical companies, like CROs, which can use this data for decisions which will improve the healthcare of the patient. And of course, we should agree that everybody should be on board, doctors, patients, researchers, and of course, developers.
Thank you. So back to Joanne and actually to all of us, but let's take one of you at a time. That works better online. So the idea with this movement health aspiration that we have is to create help and create collaboration to get the knowledge out, to bridge where there might be missing some parts of the bridges, and of course in the end it's about quality of life and well-being for the individual person. But it's also based on a assumption on that life conditions, health, are the most important pillars for prosperity in societies, for peace, for equality, for equity. So, and what I hear from you, you are all open for collaboration. You are all stressing that we need to collaborate. So let's just take us here in the panel. So how can I, from the movement, help you, assist you, so all of us can end this meeting saying, yes, we will collaborate in pushing this agenda forward? Joanne?
Sure. For me, I think the things that work really well is when there's something concrete. So we can all say, yes, we absolutely need to work together. We can all stay in touch, but unless there's a thing, and very often when we have that thing, it has to encompass many different facets. So can there be a pharmaceutical company involved? Can there maybe be an insurer? Can we talk to someone who writes policy? How can we get 5 or 6 key stakeholders? Any more than that sometimes is a bit wild to manage, but how can we get 5 or 6 people in a room together to actually talk about these ideas and have a concrete action? When that happens, that's when you can actually get outcomes.
Okay. And do you, quite shortly, one line, do you have one thing that you would like to have on the table?
I'll have to think about that. I don't have enough time right now. I'll come back to you.
Very good. Bernard, same question to you.
Yeah, you know, collaboration is obviously the way forward. The question is always, you know, it's good to collaborate, but you need to be also in a structure or in an infrastructure that helps you to collaborate. And I think here there is some reflections to have, because I believe, you know, adding up just some concrete projects, of course, is going to move the needle and give examples of what can be done. But there needs to be a little bit of reflection on what is needed in Europe in terms of infrastructure to put
Yes,
together.
so that's the direction.
For instance, the data space, you know, the e-health data space is a typical example where we believe in healthcare, there is a lot to be leveraged if the infrastructure is put in place properly.
Thank you. Toni?
Yeah, if I can say, I fully agree. I mean, we usually talk about collaboration in sort of ethereal and conceptual manner. We have to make it happen with this concretion that Joanna was talking about, proof of concept, because when we create this this dialogue around a specific challenge, the sense of identity of a real translational community, 4 or 5 different stakeholders happen. We have now an enormous opportunity for developing this proof of concept in the cancer mission, because the cancer mission is specifically a strategy for putting all these stakeholders together to maximize their capacities and providing solutions that can be only created when the energy, the brains, and the knowledge is complemented to each other.
Thank you. Thomas?
Yeah, thank you. So I think it can be important for some of these partnerships to have sort of a neutral platform where the stakeholders can meet on equal terms, and sometimes we don't have those spaces, and because sometimes when we need to experiment and find new models, you know, there are risks involved. Some stakeholders get nervous. Do we need new payment models? You know, what about data sharing? All these things, and to have sort of a safe space where you can experiment, you can exchange views in sort of a de-risked environment, I think can be very important.
Very good, thank you. And Alexandre?
I totally agree with Thomas. What I'm thinking is working is to build clusters of companies and make work groups for each team and work together on different topics. Then if we combine all those topics, we'll have the full picture, and of course we can start with proof of concept, small steps, and then scale those projects to a larger scale.
See, thank you. Thank you very much. We don't have so much time left, but I have an idea here. So I will invite all of you, and of course Dimitar, who is the brain on setting this session up, to a online meeting where we can find the way to go forward. So I will just ask you to nod if you would like to participate, and then at least we take that part from, and the aim of that meeting will be to find at least one step forward that gets us to that direction that we agree on here. Is that fine with everybody?
Yes.
So I won't refuse a rejection of that invitation in my inbox, just so you know. So we have 1.5 minutes left. Is there any last comment from anybody, which has to be very brief?
Maybe just from my end, this idea that I would like to have also, which is, you know, health is not a cost, but health is an investment for the society. And I think if we can bring this message to society, I think, and after the COVID-19 crisis, I think everybody understands it. We're going to maybe change a mindset shift here in order to make things moving.
I agree. I think that is probably one of the most important pillars of the mindset shift. So thank you very much to all of you. I'm pretty sure that everybody at their computer, they are giving you big applause now. If they're not, they should do so. And I really appreciate you taking the time, and thank you so much for all your deep insights and making this a good experience. Thank you.